Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to our new module of science. We're starting module 6, titled Natural Hazards. This module is super short. It's just going to be 2 lessons. Our first lesson is titled Earthquakes and Volcanoes. Let's go ahead and get started. You're going to open up your books, your workbooks, to page 260. Read through the scenario, decide which of the friends you agree with the most, and explain why using complete sentences on the lines below. Once you've completed that, we're going to watch the video of the volcano, and then you're going to write down any questions that you have. Let's go ahead and take a look at that video together. Okay, now that you've gone through the video, let's go ahead and start answering or writing down any questions that you have. So write down at least 3 questions. Then you're going to read about the STEM career connection of a seismologist. Here you have a very short reading passage and you have a picture. Once you've gone through that, go ahead and answer the questions on the following page. What do earthquake monitoring stations do? And what do you think the lines on the seismograph mean? Then you're going to give your best answer to your essential question. How are people affected by earthquakes and volcanoes? Once you've completed that, you are going to jump into our next pages where we're going to review our lesson vocabulary. We only have 3 words for this lesson. We have seismic wave, seismometer, and a seismograph. Let's go back and take a look at the definitions of our words. A seismic wave is a vibration that's caused by an earthquake. A seismometer is an instrument or a tool that's used to detect and record earthquakes. And a seismograph shows the seismic waves as curvy lines along the graph. Now we're going to watch another short video titled Volcanoes and Earthquakes on the process that changes Earth's surface, and we're going to answer these questions. How did the San Francisco earthquake affect people? What was the total economic loss due to the earthquake? How did the eruption of Mount St. Helens affect people? What do scientists think caused the volcano tremors? And how can earthquakes and volcanoes affect environment, including plants and animals? Let's go ahead and start our video, and we'll go through that information together.
A major earthquake jolted the San Francisco Bay Area on the afternoon of October 17, 1989. The earthquake hit just when commuters were stuck in traffic on their way home from work, and as a World Series game was set to begin in San Francisco's Candlestick Park. The earthquake occurred at 5:04 p.m. and measured 6.9 on the Richter scale, which assigns numbers to earthquakes based on the strength of the shaking. The earthquake wrecked more than 18,000 residences and approximately 2,500 businesses. Bridges, highways, and freeways also suffered major damage. An entire section of Interstate 880 collapsed and was torn down because it could not be repaired. A segment of the top tier of the Oakland-San Francisco Bay Bridge also collapsed onto its bottom section. The total economic loss was estimated to be $8 billion. Over 1,000 kilometers north of San Francisco, you will find Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is an active volcano located in southern Washington state. This volcano erupted on May 18, 1980, destroying over 250 homes and caused billions of dollars worth of damage. It was the most destructive volcanic event in American history. It all started on the afternoon of March 20, 1980. A magnitude 4.2 earthquake rocked the state. Earthquake activity increased over the next few days, along with a continuous shaking called volcano tremor. Geologists saw this as a sign of magma moving underneath the volcano. Eventually, a large explosion was seen at the summit, causing a bulge on the side of the mountain. At 8:32 a.m. on May 18th, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake a mile below the mountain caused the unstable bulge to collapse. Within seconds, the entire northern side of the volcano fell away in a massive landslide, exposing the magma at its core and releasing the pressure. Mount St Helens burst forth with an enormous explosion of rock and ash that expanded at nearly the speed of sound. In all, the eruption devastated over 321 square kilometers and dropped ash over much of the northwestern United States. These have been actual descriptions of two of the most devastating natural disasters in U.S. history. Scientists have studied and learned a lot from both events in an effort to predict similar events in the future.
All right, let's go ahead and get back to our questions. Now we saw how did the San Francisco earthquake affect people? You can go back into the video and talk about the bridges collapsing, how it destroyed homes and businesses. We can scroll through the video and see some of the damage that was caused by the earthquake. Our next question asks for what was the total economic loss due to the earthquake? So how much damage did it cost? Or how much would the repairs have cost? It would cost about $8 billion. How did the eruption of Mount St. Helens affect people? We know that it destroyed lots of homes in the area when it exploded and caused earthquakes. What do scientists think caused the volcano tremors? We can go back to the video, or you can rewind the video to find the answer for that. And how can earthquakes and volcanoes affect the environment, including plants and animals? So think about what's happening during an earthquake or during a volcano. What's happening to the land in the area? What's happening to the wildlife that had habitats in that area? What's happening to the plants that were growing in those areas? Next, we're going to read a handout titled Volcanoes on how forces within Earth can affect Earth's surface. We're going to answer the questions. Number 6 says define volcano. So what is a volcano? Number 7, where do volcanoes occur? And number 8, how do volcanoes affect plants? So we're going to pull up our handout. Volcanoes. What is a volcano? A volcano is a mountain that builds up around the opening in Earth's crust. Sometimes a volcano will force materials from Earth's interior, that means the inside of the Earth, out of its opening. Scientists call this event an eruption. A volcanic eruption can send out melted rock, gases, ash, or rock into the air. Melted rock is called magma. Once magma reaches Earth's surface, it's called lava. By erupting often, a volcano can build a large mountain. Each eruption can add layers of lava and ash. The lava cools and hardens into rock. Some volcanoes rest quietly for many years until they erupt suddenly. Others erupted often in the past, but will never erupt again. Where volcanoes form. Most volcanoes occur at the edges of plates. When two plates meet, one can sink below the other. As it sinks, the plate gets hotter. The rock melts into magma, and the magma rises and forms a volcano. Volcanoes also form where Earth's plates move apart. The space between the moving plates allows magma to rise to the surface. Some volcanoes form far away from plate edges. These hotspots are places where Earth's crust is very thin. Magma can easily break through the surface. The islands of Hawaii formed over a hotspot in the Pacific Ocean. The islands are the tops of huge volcanoes that rose from the ocean floor. People in the environment. When a volcano erupts, plants can be destroyed over a wide area by falling ash, erupting lava, or forest fires. However, volcanic soils have a lot of nutrients, so plants can recolonize quickly. Animals can be killed during an eruption by the same things that kills plants. They can also starve after the eruption if too many plants have died in a large area. When Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, scientists estimated that over 24,000 animals were killed by the lava and burning ash. The same effects of a volcano eruption that can kill plants and animals can affect people as well. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it destroyed 2 cities and killed an estimated 16,000 people. In 2010, a volcano in Iceland erupted for 7 days and filled the air over the northern European and northern Atlantic with thick clouds of fine volcanic ash. This ash could clog jet engines and prevented air travel to and from many cities in Europe until the air cleared. A volcano's effects aren't limited to a local area or a short amount of time. In April 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia put so much volcanic ash into the atmosphere that the temperatures in Western Europe and North America were much cooler than normal throughout 1816. Temperatures were so much cooler that some farmers had trouble growing crops, and 1816 was called the year without a summer. All right, that takes us to the end of our reading. Let's hop back to our questions. Define a volcano. We see that information right here at the top. That's our first sentence. For question number 7, where do volcanoes occur? So here, where volcanoes form, this is the area where you're going to pull your answer. How do volcanoes affect plants? That's moving into the second page, where we talk about how volcanic ash and lava and magma affect plant life. You'll find most of that right here in this paragraph. Then we have another handout to read titled Earthquakes, on how forces within the earth can affect Earth's surface. We're going to define what an earthquake is. We're going to figure out what causes earthquakes, what kind of damage an earthquake can do. And then that'll take us to the end of these pages, but let's go ahead and jump into that reading. Earthquakes. What causes earthquakes? An earthquake is a sudden shaking of Earth's crust. It's caused by movements of plates along a fault. When forces push and pull a plate, energy builds up. Earth's crust may store this energy for many years. Then suddenly the energy is released. The plates slip and move along the fault. Earthquakes are common in places with active faults like parts of Alaska and California. How earthquakes travel. An earthquake begins below the ground. The energy released by a sudden movement shakes the crust. Vibrations or waves move through Earth in all directions. Did you ever drop a pebble in water? The waves of an earthquake travel in a similar way to the ripples of water. As they move away from the center of the earthquake, the waves weaken. Even so, you may still feel them hundreds of miles away from where they started. Earthquake safety. Some earthquakes are too weak to notice. Others can cause extreme damage. During a major earthquake, buildings and roads may break apart. Bridges might collapse. So here we can take a look at this diagram. Now the focus point is where the earthquake began. It usually begins along a fault. The epicenter is the point from where those waves are moving outwards on the surface. Do you know what to do if the ground below you starts to shake? You can stay safe in an earthquake by following a few simple rules. If you are indoors, duck under a table or stand in a doorway. Keep away from walls and windows. If you're outdoors, stay away from trees, power lines, and anything that might fall down. Earthquakes in the ocean. Some earthquakes strike below the ocean. If an earthquake is strong enough, it can cause the ocean crust to lift suddenly. When this happens, look out. A giant wave called a tsunami might hit the shore. Tsunamis cause great damage along coastlines. They can destroy everything in their path. All right, let's go back. So define an earthquake. That's going to be at the very, very top. Over here, we can see an earthquake is a sudden shaking of Earth's crust. It's caused by movements of plates along a fault. Our second question, what causes earthquakes? Over here again is we can find the area in the same, or the answer in the same area. Earth's crust may store the energy. When energy is released and the plates slip and move along the fault, earthquakes tend to happen in those areas. What kind of damage can an earthquake do? Again, we can go through and read through on the second page. We have pictures and we have writing to help us understand some of the damage that can be caused by an earthquake. All right, once we're done with those pages, we're going to jump into our next set of pages. And we have another handout that's titled Predicting Earthquakes and Volcanic Activity on the different methods that are being used to predict these natural hazards. The questions we're going to answer is, what is a seismograph? How does identifying and observing faults help people? And how is the ability to predict earthquakes and volcanic activity helpful? Predicting earthquakes and volcanic activity. When will the next earthquake or volcanic eruption occur? An earthquake occurs when rocks break along a fault. A fault is a line of weakness in rocks. When an earthquake occurs, waves of energy move outward from the place where the earthquake starts. These waves are called seismic waves. Scientists use seismometers to understand the earthquakes. A seismometer is a free-floating machine that detects and measures the waves produced by an earthquake. A seismometer prints the waves of an earthquake onto a roll of paper. This printout is called the seismograph. Scientists use the information to identify the epicenter or location where the earthquake began. Scientists map the location of epicenters and compare to where they know faults are located. They use this information to identify how rock along the faults has moved over time. They watch faults to let people know about the threat of possible earthquakes. In 2001, a large earthquake hit Seattle, Washington. The earthquake injured 400 people. It also caused major damage in the area. Volcanoes most often erupt at plate boundaries. During an eruption, melted rock, ash, and gases come out of the volcano. Scientists use seismic waves to help determine when an eruption might happen. Scientists also look at the gases coming from the volcano. Sulfur dioxide increases as magma rises to the surface of the volcano. Scientists also use satellites to monitor the ground around the volcano. Satellites give information on how the ground has changed. The ground near a volcano usually swells before an eruption. Mount St. Helens is a volcano in the Cascade Mountain Range in Washington State. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted. The gas and materials from the eruption killed 57 people. The eruption also destroyed homes, bridges, railroads, and highways as far as 185 miles away. During the eruption, the height of the mountain changed from 9,677 feet before the eruption to 8,363 feet after the eruption. Scientists monitor a region's possible earthquakes and volcanoes. It's impossible to predict these events, so scientists teach people about the risk and how to prepare for danger of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Okay, so what is a seismograph? Over here, we have that information on the first page. A seismograph is the printout from a seismometer that measures the strength of the earthquake. How does identifying and observing faults help people? Again, that information is in these first couple paragraphs. How is the ability to predict earthquakes and volcanic activity helpful? That information we found farther down on our pages. It helps people so that they can prepare and that they're aware of what the dangers are if one of those natural disasters should occur. Next, we're going to read Staying Safe on what people can do to protect themselves from earthquakes and volcanoes. Staying safe. What is a volcano? How can you be safe from earthquakes and volcanoes? People cannot stop natural hazards from happening. However, They can find ways to stay safe when disasters do happen. Stand up to an earthquake. Most harm to people from earthquakes happens when buildings or bridges fall down. Builders can put strong steel frames and other features into buildings. These features help prevent earthquake damage and save lives. Living with volcanoes and faults. Scientists use special tools to study changes in the ground near volcanoes and faults. These tools help them tell when a volcano may erupt or an earthquake may happen. Learning from natural hazards. Natural hazards can be dangerous to living organisms. They have also helped to shape the Earth's surface. Scientists study them to better understand the Earth. All right, what can builders do to prevent earthquake damage? We just read about that over here, that they can add strong steel frames to buildings to help keep them from falling down. What have scientists learned from natural hazards like volcanoes and earthquakes? So they use special tools to study them. This helps them to understand when a volcano is likely to erupt or an earthquake is likely to happen by studying the faults. It's also helped them understand the way Earth's surface has been shaped over time. All right, that's going to take us to the end of this lesson. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.